Raghuram Rajan springs a surprise, keeps key policy rates on hold despite high inflationary pressures, says inflation high but would wait for more data. Markets gives thumbs up to RBI's mid-quarter policy review, snaps 6 days of losing streak. Sensex surges 248 points, Nifty ends above 6,200 levels. All eyes on the US Central Bank. Will it go for tapering or won't it? Global markets trade cautiously before the big decision from Washington. And day-long strike by nationalized banks affect financial transaction. Striking employees demand better wages and service conditions. Hello and welcome to Business Wrap on this very newsy day. The Lokpal bill has been passed in Lok Sabha. Celebrations in Ralegaon, Siddhi.
The establishment of the Lokpal is necessary to strengthen the fight against corruption and ensure accountability of public officials to the people.
RBI delivers a surprise and Fed decision which everyone is waiting for. I'm Sidhant, Sibal, and let's go straight to our top story. The year's last major policy event, RBI's monetary policy, came out today. Let's begin the program with that. It was a surprise no one had expected. RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan surprised everyone today by leaving all key policy rates unchanged, notwithstanding persistent high inflationary pressure. Many are even calling it as Governor Raghuram Rajan's Christmas gift to markets. The decision to keep rates unchanged will be a big breather for industry and retail borrowers in particular, as markets had expected another 25 basis points hike in the short-term lending rates. More in this report.
In a big year-end surprise, the Reserve Bank of India has kept key interest rates unchanged. The central bank kept both Repo and CRR unchanged. Repo rate stands at 7.75%. Repo rate is the rate at which bank borrows money from RBI. Reserve repo rate stands at 6.75%. Meanwhile, the cash reserve ratio, or the amount of money which bank would have to park with the RBI, stands at 4%. And here is the reason why the central bank key interest rate remained unchanged.
As responsible central bankers, in an environment where there is a weak economy, we have to try and see what is the underlying strength of inflation that we're trying to tackle, recognizing that monetary policy works with fairly long lags. So we will calibrate the level of the policy rate consistent with what we think the underlying inflation is.
The bank believes that vegetable prices will fall significantly both at wholesale and retail levels. The bank also hopes that growth in second half of the current fiscal to be stronger on expansion in agriculture and exports and stalled projects coming on stream. The RBI added it would gauge the impact of any decision by the US Federal Reserve to withdraw its monetary stimulus.
We are certainly focused continually on the external environment. As I've said before, we are in a better position to withstand the volatility stemming from tapering. Our current account deficit is significantly lower, and we have shown the ability to raise money if we need.
The US Central Bank concluded its policy meeting later in the day. The RBI had raised interest rates by 1/4 percentage point at its previous reviews in September and October. Next policy review will take place in January. Business Desk, TD News.
So a surprise no one had expected. But let's hear from the man of the moment himself, Governor Raghuram Rajan, what he had to say after the announcement of the monetary policy.
The high level of core CPI inflation leaves no room for complacency. There are indications that vegetable prices may be turning down sharply, although intermediaries could impede the full pass-through into lower retail inflation.
This policy decision
which is to stay on hold, is a close one. Current inflation is too high, and I repeat, it is too high. Let me assure you that the Reserve Bank will be vigilant. Even though the Reserve Bank has maintained status quo today, it can help guide market expectations through a clearer description of its policy reaction function. It's important to resist the labels of dovish, hawkish, etc. We are trying to calibrate monetary policy primarily to target inflation in an environment where the economy is weak. We need to see a substantial softening of both headline inflation as well as some momentum in the right direction in core inflation. The sense is still that growth in the second half will be stronger than growth in the first half.
Meanwhile, the industry has lauded Reserve Bank of India's decision. The Federation of Indian Export Organizations, or FIO, has welcomed the status quo in key policy rates but demanded to increase the flow of credit to export sector. Meanwhile, FICCI called RBI's decision a welcome breather. CII said that RBI has demonstrated restraint and foresight to strike the right balance between inflation and growth. Meanwhile, ASSOCHAM said that it actually went to the extent of saying that now there is a case for banks to cut lending rates in the wake of ample liquidity in the system. And finally, the PhD Chambers of Commerce said that calibrated policy stance by the Reserve Bank is inspiring in the wake of global environment, the global economic conditions. From one central bank to another central bank, this one from Washington, the Fed's big policy action. The possibility that the Federal Reserve could finally start to trim its extraordinary stimulus for the economy could make this week an explosive one for financial markets. Though the odds still point to no major policy change, most of the recent domestic economic data suggests the beginning of the end of the massive bond buying program or the American stimulus coming sooner than later. As the US Federal Reserve sits down for 2 days of deliberations, policymakers are facing signs of US economic revival. Unemployment is dropping, retail sales are picking up, there is a slower yet still vibrant housing recovery, and the manufacturing sector continues to chug along. Meanwhile, inflation is tame and barely creeping higher. Put that all together, it seems time has come for the Federal Reserve to start slowing down the extra stimulus it has been providing to the US economy.
I expect and would like the Fed to move this December, but I don't expect them to move quickly. I'm expecting a small amount, maybe $10 billion this time around, and slowly taper down until it's zero, probably by the third quarter of next year.
However, if the Fed decides not to taper now, it could decide to tinker, showing it appreciates the economic recovery without threatening it. Question is impact over India. Remember when taper talk happened in August, the rupee touched an all-time low of 68 against the US dollar. Sensex slumped and gloom was the buzzword. Since then, lot of water has flown down. 4th September, Raghuram Rajan took over as RBI governor and he vowed to create a bulletproof national balance sheet. This time around, we haven't seen such panic mode. Even the RBI governor himself feels that India is better prepared this time around.
We are certainly focused continually on the external environment. As I've said before, we are in a better position to withstand the volatility stemming from tapering. Our current account deficit is significantly lower, and we have shown the ability to raise money if we need.
But all eyes will be now on the US Central Bank's policy decision, which will come out at 12:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time on Thursday, just a week before the Christmas holidays. To be sure, whatever happens at the meeting's conclusion on Thursday, the stage is set for Ben Bernanke's successor, Janet Yellen. Business Desk, DD News. And as they say, if the US sneezes, the world catches a cold. And if the Fed does something, markets globally are bound to be affected. Remember, last August, Asian currencies slumped against the US dollar and emerging markets crashed. Here's a report on how Fed's taper talk has affected the Asian economies. A volatile year across Asia with a currency crisis in India, spluttering growth and spiking interest rates in China, and fresh protests in the streets of Thailand. But overall corporate sentiment in the region has been weakened by an institution far, far away in Washington, the US Federal Reserve. Concerns over the global economic recovery continue to weigh as the biggest risk, with the companies worried that eventual scaling back of the monetary policy by the United States could unwind a spree of growth.
They're looking back at 93, 96. Those were years where the Fed raised interest rates very fast, and it led to the Asian crisis in 96, 97. So I think that there is a little bit of fear because of what we saw the last time we saw the Fed doing something similar. But I think it's a little bit just, the people are being very cautious here. I think the fundamentals are strong. I think they're in no way in the same situation that they were back in 95, 96.
Rising costs also hit corporate sentiment in the fourth quarter, with prices of many raw material continuing to climb. And breaking down corporate sentiment by sector, the auto sector was the most negative. Building and property firms were the most upbeat, no surprise in a region that, at least for now, is home to some of the world's hottest housing markets. Asia has been key engine of growth as Western economies languished for several years. But as of now, the US economy appears to be stronger and Europe shows green shoots of recovery. Asia looks more exposed. And this could lead to a more cautious approach to investment and business in 2014. Business Desk, DG News. So all eyes on the Fed's big decision. Time for a short break. After the break, all the market action.
आज हमारा देश इतना आगे बढ़ गया है कि बाकी दुनिया की नजरों में हम एक महान देश के रूप में उभर रहे हैं, लेकिन उनका एक और नजरिया भी है हमारी तरफ। आइए उसे देखें।
What are they doing out there?
जाने अनजाने कहीं आप भी दुनिया के सामने अपने देश की ऐसी तस्वीर तो नहीं रख रहे? अपनी इज्जत अपने हाथ। जय हिंद।
अरे सुन तो।
मुझे क्या सुनाना चाहते हो? जो सुनाओ मेरी सौतन को।
किसको?
अरे वही तुम्हारा मोबाइल फोन जिससे सुबह शाम दिन रात चिपके रहते थे और कहते थे किसान कॉल सेंटर से बातें हो रही हैं।
अच्छा ये बात है।
हाँ क्यों? क्या हुआ? अब बात नहीं होती क्या?
अब तो झट से बात हो जाती है।
ऐसा क्या?
हाँ, अब तो ज्यादा लाइनें और खास तकनीक के कारण खेती के माहिरों से तुरंत बात हो जाती है। और अगर कभी लाइन व्यस्त हो तो अपनी समस्या फोन पर रिकॉर्ड करा दो, वहाँ से फोन आ जाता है और समस्या की हल का मैसेज भी आ जाता है। ये देखो आ गया।
अरे वाह, इसका मतलब इंतजार की घड़ी अब खत्म।
हाँ,
तभी मैं सोचूं कि आजकल मुझ पर इतना प्यार क्यों आ रहा है।
कृषि संबंधी समस्याओं का अपनी भाषा में तुरंत हल पाने के लिए पूरे भारत में किसी भी फोन से हेल्पलाइन नंबर पर संपर्क करें। किसानों का दोस्त किसान कॉल सेंटर।
Hi, welcome back. On to action from Dalal Street. Snapping 6th day of losing streak, markets surged over 1% higher after the Reserve Bank of India kept key policy rates unchanged in its mid-quarter monetary policy on Wednesday. Sensex gained 248 points to end at 20,860 levels. Nifty gained 78 points to end at 6,217. Interest rate sensitive automobile, banking, realty stocks edged higher. The market breadth indicating the overall health of the market was strong. Gainers on the chart were BHEL, Tata Power, Bajaj Auto, Hero Motocorp and L&T, which were up by between 5 to 2%. There were only three losers, Jindal Steel, SSLT and ICICI Bank, which were down by about 1%. Markets will now be keenly watching Reserve Bank, the Federal Bank, for some clarity as to when the US Central Bank will begin trimming its stimulus. On to global market action. European stocks edged higher as investors waited for the Federal Reserve to decide whether to reduce its monthly asset purchases. Key benchmark indices in the UK, Germany and France were up by between 0.37% to 0.69%. Asian stocks also edged higher as investors awaited a Federal Reserve decision on its stimulus program. Key benchmark indices in Hong Kong, Japan, Indonesia and South Korea rose by between 0.32% to 2.02%. Key benchmark indices in China, Taiwan and Singapore fell by between 0.05% to 0.13%. On to the Mint Street, the rupee ended below above 62 against the US dollar. It lost 8 paise against the dollar to end at 62.09 versus the US dollar. Time for a short break. After the break, a story of Santosh and why he was distressed today.
बचा बचा के छुपा छुपा के बचा बचा के छुपा छुपा के बचा बचा के छुपा छुपा के
पानी की इतनी किल्लत, कहीं ये आपका भविष्य तो नहीं? ऐसे भविष्य से बचने के लिए बारिश के पानी का संरक्षण कीजिए और पानी रखिए
बचा बचा के।
लखन, तो ऐसी होता है। लखन, टाइपिंग मैटर तो काफी ज्यादा है ना?
पूरा हो गया सर।
इतनी जल्दी?
सर एमडीटी के दबाव ऑपरेशन से मेरी उंगलियां कंप्यूटर कीबोर्ड पर पहले की तरह फटाफट चलने लगी।
अरे वाह, फिर वही फुर्ती। एमडीटी और ऑपरेशन का उठाएं लाभ, आएगी फुर्ती अपने आप। क्या कहने?
अधिक जानकारी के लिए पास के प्राथमिक स्वास्थ्य केंद्रों से संपर्क करें।
Hi, welcome back. Now on to the nationwide PSU bank strike. Normal banking operations like check clearance, withdrawing and depositing of money at branches were hit across the country as employees of public sector banks went on a one-day strike today to press for wage revision and other demands. All the nationalized banks are observing the strike to protest against the decision of the Reserve Bank to accord national treatment to foreign banks and to press for a wage revision with other demands. Here's a special story on how Aam Aadmi was affected by the bank strike.
He is Santosh. This morning, Santosh walked in for a check clearance to a PSU bank but was disappointed as the bank was closed. This was the scenario all across the country as over 10 lakh bank employees of various PSU banks went for a day's strike on Wednesday. Normal banking operations were hit significantly.
मैं गया था लालगंज में हमारे पड़ता है, वहाँ पे तो पैसे ही नहीं निकल रहे, बहुत दिक्कत का सामना करना पड़ा।
जो बिजनेसमैन है उनके लिए तो बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है क्योंकि एटीएम से उनका काम नहीं चलने वाला है और छोटा मोटा ट्रांजैक्शन हो तो ठीक है, शॉपिंग कर लिया या एटीएम से थोड़ा पैसा निकाल लिया, लेकिन जो बड़ा ट्रांजैक्शन है जिन्होंने अपने बिजनेस चलाने हैं वो कैसे करेंगे इस चीज़ के लिए?
Bank unions are demanding wage revision which is due since November 2012 by above 30%. However, Indian Banking Association is allowing only 5% wage hike. United Forum of Banking Union is also opposing banking license to foreign players which might make the sector unviable.
इस हड़ताल के बाद 14 तारीख को आईबीआई ने एक मात्र भीख के रूप में 5% हमें ऑफर किया जो कि हमें एक्सेप्टेबल नहीं है। उसके साथ साथ और भी बहुत सारी मांगे हैं, रेगुलेटरी वर्किंग आवर्स है, लेकिन सरकार किसी भी चीज के लिए मानने के लिए तैयार नहीं है।
Entire banking operations including foreign exchange and commercial transactions and clearing of checks suffer due to the strike.
Banking sector is considered to be the backbone of any economy, and when it takes a pause, obviously the impact is on the economy. On 23rd of this month, the union members will again take a meeting, and if there is no consensus between the IBA and the union members, then this union can again go on a strike for indefinite period. No matter whosoever wins in this battle of the wage hike, but the ultimate sufferer is the Aam Aadmi. With camera person Anand Kumar, Arun Sharma, DD News.
So the ultimate sufferer is the Aam Aadmi. On to our next story. The Forward Markets Commission, or the FMC, in an order has declared MCX parent company, the Financial Technologies, and its 3 former directors as not fit and proper to run the exchange. The FMC also said that Financial Technologies founder Jignesh Shah was the biggest beneficiary of the fraud at the National Spot Exchange. Rubbishing Shah's claim that he was a victim of employee fraud, the Commission has said that he benefited from the profits of NSEL that zoomed on the illegal paid contracts and skyrocketing market capitalization of his listed entities. The order further added that Shah misused his position as the promoter. On to some news from the Parliament, giving the Commerce and Industry Minister clarifying the 9th ministerial meeting at Bali in Indonesia from December 5th to 7th. The Commerce Minister Anand Sharma said that the country has led the charge on behalf of developing countries of Africa, Asia and Latin America in securing food security when the talks were on the verge of being abandoned.
Therefore, what has been agreed is purely an interim mechanism with the best endeavor is to reach a permanent solution. Permanent solution does not mean a poor solution. Permanent solution does not mean that based on the Uruguay round, permanent solution will be based on the Doha round. Permanent solution will be which addresses all these issues. There will not be any permanent solution which compromises the interests of India, its farmers, its food security, or for that matter of all other developing countries.
On to some news from the tech world. A digital currency known as Bitcoin has gained quick popularity. However, now there are many concerns about Bitcoin. European banking regulators warn consumers against hacking and other risks associated with online currencies like Bitcoin. It follows similar advisories from the Bank of France and the Chinese Central Bank and adds pressure to call for the sector to be regulated.
Its value has soared in recent months, making Bitcoin a favorite with investors. But its popularity is causing concern for authorities worldwide. The European Banking Authority has issued a formal warning to consumers. It said people have no protection if things go wrong because currently there is no regulation.
We have had cases in the past where the computers, the mainframes which are being used to mine the bitcoins have been hacked into, so the money creation process has actually been hijacked. And the other concern, I suppose, is that at the moment it's really the speculators that have the whip hand with Bitcoin, and we've seen the price of bitcoins rise something like 100-fold over the last year or so.
Complex computer algorithms are used to create the so-called cryptocurrency, but it isn't backed by central bank or a government. Its value depends on people's confidence in the currency, making it volatile, and that's the problem. The Bank of France and China's central bank have already warned against it, but the US said it will be useful if it prevents money laundering.
At the moment, you're in a situation where you're having to, if you like, exchange real money, or dollars for argument's sake, for Bitcoin. So in a way, you could take the view that the existence of Bitcoin might actually help the integration of illicit funds into the global financial system. So, I think it's a very, very tricky, subject, and I have no doubt that politicians are going to be discussing it for years to come.
With or without regulation, virtual currencies are here to stay, and Bitcoin could become the catalyst for the continued shift from physical currencies to electronic ones. Business Desk, DD News.
I wonder what the RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan would have said about Bitcoins. Now on to Kashmir. Floriculturists at Asia's largest tulip garden in Kashmir are sowing new varieties of the flower with an aim to attract tourists during the next flowering season. Remember, tulips are not only providing employment to people in the valley, but also attracting lots of tourists to the valley. More in this special report.
Floriculturists at Asia's largest tulip garden in Kashmir sowed new variety of the flower with an aim to attract tourists during the next flowering season. The Department of Floriculture has introduced different varieties of tulip, some imported from Holland. The tulip bulbs are being sowed at a time so that the flower blossom on time. A dedicated team of floriculture experts and gardeners were seen busy preparing the land, cutting the beds in different pattern and sowing the tulip bulbs. Farmers at the garden said that the hard work will reap results when the garden is in full bloom the next season.
जी हमें पिछले एक महीने से हम लगा रहे हैं कि नए बाल्बस जो हालैंड से आए कि अब वो शो कर रहे हैं हम इस साल कि हम सेंगडू में सारे जो यहाँ पे एम्प्लॉयज़ है सारे लगे हैं मिलजुल के सारे हम ये काम कर रहे हैं कि अच्छे गार्डन मिल जाएगा अगले जो सीज़न आएगा नया सीज़न आएगा लोग आएंगे जो पिछले साल बेहतर रहा इस साल हम उम्मीद करते हैं उससे अच्छा लग जाएगा कि इस साल हमने और भी वैरायटी इसमें ऐड की है कि यही
By April, tulips are usually in full bloom in and around Srinagar, lending an ethereal atmosphere to the Kashmir Valley. The tulips, set against the backdrop of the majestic snow-clad Himalayan ranges, are a major tourist attraction. One of the workers at the field said that he was confident that the garden would provide an impetus to the state's tourism.
इंशाल्लाह हमें पूरी उम्मीद है कि जो आने वाला टूलिप गार्डन होगा वो हमारे टूरिज्म डिपार्टमेंट के लिए बहुत ही शानदार शो होगा इंशाल्लाह इस सीज़न में अगले सीज़न में जो कि आप देख रहे हो हमारे लेबर्स यहाँ पे बहुत ही शिद्दत से काम कर रहे हैं इस उम्मीद के साथ कि हमारे कश्मीर में ये जो टूलिप गार्डन बना हुआ है एशिया में नंबर 1 पे है
Kashmir boasts of Asia's biggest tulip garden, named the Indira Gandhi Memorial Tulip Garden as Siraj Bagh, Chashma Shahi in Srinagar. A festival is held annually in the month of April when tulips are in full bloom. The sprawling tulips of varied colors make the garden look like a carpet with intricate designs. Business Desk, DD News.
On that note, time to look at the repeat headlines again. Raghuram Rajan springs a surprise, keeps key policy rates on hold despite high inflationary pressures, says inflation high but would wait for more data. Markets give thumbs up to RBI's mid-quarter policy review, snaps 6th day of losing streak, Sensex surges to 48 points, Nifty ends above 6,200 level. All eyes on the US Central Bank. Will it go for tapering or won't it? Global market trade cautious before the big decision from Washington. And a day-long strike by nationalized banks affect financial transactions, striking employees demand better wages and service conditions. You can catch all the latest news from the world of politics, sports and business at DD News Twitter handle. That's at DD News live around the clock. Well, that's all in this edition of Business Wrap. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.